Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Sessions, the podcast about the people who work in the esports and gaming industry and how they survive it all. My name's Matt Demers. I'm your host. Today, we are talking to Mike Haze, who is both a Super Smash Bros. Player, tournament organizer, YouTuber, Twitch streamer, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good tonight, Matt. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. It's a bit late night here in Canada. I'm kind of, it usually ends up that all the people I'm interviewing are on the West Coast, and it's 3 hours behind. So it's a little bit late here, but thanks for making the time in order to talk to me.
No problem at all. I forgot that you're like 3 hours ahead of me, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah,
I didn't realize how late it was.
I mean, like, this whole gaming thing is just like a really big exercise in how to optimize all those times anyway. Like, I remember at the score we just had to think, okay, when are Europe going to be on, when is United States active on the West Coast or East Coast or any of that stuff. That's kind of something that you have to think about as well, in terms of live streaming. Is that ever kind of crossed your mind about where your prime audience is?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we're all responsible for kind of figuring out where we want to stream and kind of fit in between each other's schedules. So right now, Alex19 has the night stream, so he has late night on lockdown. So if you want to stream a night Alex is going to stream, it's going to be very, very hard for you. Same with Lucky, early morning. So I'm kind of trying to find my spot now that I'm getting back into full-time streaming.
Is there ever a point where you're oh, I don't even I can't care, or I can't be as the thing is, sometimes when I think about it, it's oh, I would rather not stream if I'm watching a Dota tournament, or if there is a Games Done Quick marathon or something like that. But if you keep thinking about that, you just never end up streaming, right?
No, yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, some days I'll see it's really frustrating at times. You'll see Leppin, Mango, Hungrybox, Armada, Hugs, and all the super, super big streamers. And those days I used to get demotivated, but now it's just whatever, I'll just do it.
I mean, like you said, or like I said rather, it's you can't not. It's it's probably more valuable to keep the chain going rather than just waiting for a perfect time for it. No,
yeah, definitely. I think time zones kind of affect tournaments more so, is something I've been thinking about too. For example, CEO that just happened a month or two ago. Day 2, top 32 started at 10 a.m. So coming from West Coast, it was in Florida. West Coast, it's 3 hours behind, meaning I'm getting up at 7 a.m. Meaning I'm playing top 32 at 7 a.m. And if I want to be warmed up and ready to go, I have to get up 5 a.m. my time, basically. So I'll train up for that. If I'm going to a national, SmashCon's coming up, I'm starting to go to bed a little earlier just so I can get kind of in the groove.
Yeah, it's just a constant kind of thing. Especially for me, I'm watching a lot of Dota tournaments that happen to be in Asia, and it's just after a week of being on a certain time schedule and then going back, it's just you eventually just crash, and it's oh man, I need to just get things right. Let's put it that way. Kind of rewinding a bit. Did you want to tell me a little bit about kind of your history, I guess, and how you kind of you're mentioning full-time streaming. Checking out your Twitter, I guess beforehand, it was since I didn't make top 8 at EVO, I have to go back to my full-time job, or I'm starting a full-time job tomorrow. It's full-time streaming. So I guess give me a condensed history of how you got to that point.
Sure. So I started Melee in 2006. A lot of people don't know that. I played for 2 years, and I was really, really bad. And I'm talking it took me 9 months to even win a tournament match. I was going 0-2 for months and months and months. I was really, really trash. After Melee was out, I made friends with some good players. Still wasn't really any good. I could do the basics and stuff. But then Brawl came out, and all of my friends ended up pretty much moving to Brawl. So I started going to Brawl tournaments, and eventually somehow I made a name for myself. I think it was around EVO 2009, 2010 is when I first started making upsets. And I got 3rd place at that EVO. And then the next couple years were really, really good for me in terms of competing. Towards the end of Brawl, I started TOing a lot. I was the biggest organizer in SoCal, or California, West Coast as a whole. And that was pretty cool. But at some point, I realized my heart is really in competing, and running tournaments and competing don't mix very well. I had a good staff, I had good people helping me out, but still, it's really, really hard to compete at high level when you're distracted, of course.
Yeah, it's just a large it's a large sink of attention. Even if you're playing, you're still thinking what's going on while I'm not there.
Yeah, exactly that. So I stopped TOing, and I went back to playing, and nobody really picked up Brawl in terms of TOing in my region as much as I did. The entries pretty much cut into a 4th. So at that point, I had the option of going to like PM, which is what a bunch of the Brawl players are doing, or going back to Melee. I figured Melee had more longevity than PM. Looks like I made the right choice. So I ended up doing that. I was working. I had a full-time job. I had like a big boy job for about 3 years, and that was coming to like 2015, I think. Maybe that was 2014. I'm not sure. I actually don't remember. These past 2 years have gone by.
It's
I
just
think
a
it was
blur.
2014. Yeah, it's really, really crazy. I think it was like October 2014. I just decided to quit my job. Like, I was miserable. I was doing sales. That's my entire background in terms of my professional life. So I did sales, and it was cool. It was a good job, but I just ended up hating it. I'd be sitting at work, like wasting time, just waiting to get home and want to do what I wanted to do. So I eventually cut the ties and quit. I actually quit initially to make a rap album. That's something I don't know a lot of people know about me, that I rap.
I was gonna bring that up
like-
eventually, yeah, but it's definitely like I don't want to say like a nice side hustle, I guess, but everyone's kind of got that one thing that they kind of do on the side. Like for me, it's tea. For you, it's rap.
If you like tea, it's fine.
Oh, I love tea. Tea's the best. But anyways, continue. Sorry.
Sure, no problem. We'll have to have a tea date sometime.
Oh man, it'd be amazing.
So I actually quit to make my rap album, and that I thought it was gonna be way easier than it was. That was like the hardest thing I've ever tried to do. Still not finished, and I think that's okay. I think I'll find out when I'm ready for it. But as it so happens, like I only saved up like 3 or 4 months of rent when I quit, and I went through that way faster than I thought I would. So it was like maybe it was like 4 months of rent, and I finished in like 3 or like 2.5. And I'm like, okay, I need to make some money. I was playing Melee, and I was doing pretty decent. And I had that drive to do well, but this kind of really pushed me to want to improve. So what ended up happening was I started going to a bunch of tournaments, small tournaments at first. Like I was still going to the big ones. I was still going to SSS every other week. But I started grinding the smaller tournaments more, and it was really, really tough for me. Like at first, because you have that pressure, you have the added pressure of if I don't win this tournament, I am not going to eat tonight, or like I'm not going to have a good dinner tonight. I'm going to have to eat Jack in the Box tacos, or whatever it might be. But because of that, I think like it really gave me motivation to want to be good and make myself be the best I can. So from there, started playing, got a lot better, got ranked pretty quickly. Then started streaming. And I was doing like streaming kind of like half-assed for a long time. But I think it was about last year. Last June was when I got partnered with Twitch. Started full-time streaming, and I did that until like January of this year. I just took like a massive break. I started full-time streaming. Should have been like 2 weeks ago, but my motherboard died this week, so this is like week 2, and I haven't streamed at all. It sucks.
It's got to be the technical issues. I think are like the worst thing ever, because like you're totally at the mercy of either like a stock level or FedEx or whoever's like shipping it to you. And I think I read on your Twitter that they got it wrong, or like there were some compatibility issues with like some other hardware you had, and it's like that's like the worst, where you're just like, I should be doing all these things that I want to be doing right now, but all of it is waiting. So you're kind of just stuck there, and you're kind of just stuck in your own head.
It's really funny because you don't realize how much you miss your computer until you don't have it. Like, now that I really have motivated myself up to streaming and making content, I really want to make content, and I can't do anything. So I'm glad I'm on the podcast, being semi-productive at least. But truth be told, I've been playing Pokemon Go and watching anime all day. So just enjoying my time doing that.
Hey man, sometimes you need that break. That was something that just kind of stuck out to me a little bit. Was you were saying you did take a long break. So I guess was that just like a burnout, or was that something that just like felt right for the time?
It was pretty much burnout. Like throughout I started about June-ish of last year, full-time streaming. Or I called it full-time streaming. Really, it was like kind of half-assed. But it was something like 4 or 5 hours a day if I could. I think I really started taking it seriously towards the end of the year, like October to like middle of January, up until Genesis. And at that point, I was doing like everything I could to stream, and I was doing extremely well. Like I would stream pretty much every day unless it was like a major tournament, and even then I would try to squeeze in a couple hours at the end. But I was streaming through like every holiday, so like that kind of sucked. But, excuse me. Ooh. But it was definitely for the better. So like Halloween, for example, I didn't go out. All my friends went out. I just stayed home and streamed and did like a spooky story stream. Thanksgiving, same kind of thing. Ended up staying home streaming. Christmas, I'm pretty sure I did the same thing. So I sacrificed a lot. And my sub count was pretty good. Like it was the highest. I think that was the peak I've ever had. The highest peak around that time. But yeah, around like January, like after Genesis, I was like, okay, I need like a week off. And then a week turned into like 2 weeks and 3 weeks. It was just pretty much burnout. Like making so much content or spending so much time doing the same thing is really what I think took a toll on me.
I mean, so like you can kind of use that experience at least when you're kind of coming back to it anyway, because like I tend to have those burnout periods myself, and usually what makes it kind of come back a little bit easier is just introducing a little bit more structure into like what I'm doing. So like, did you kind of like go through that process where you were like, oh, okay, this is where I'm being completely inefficient, and like sure, like I would stay in for Halloween or something like that, but it's like if I had content planned or scheduled or something like that, I know you can't exactly do that with Twitch, but say hypothetically YouTube or whatever, that's, you know, that kind of planning would allow me to, you know, do things a little bit better. So do you like come back from that break being like, okay, I'm gonna like do things a little bit differently in terms of just like structure?
Yeah, definitely. During the end of last year, like I was trying to stream 6+ hours a day, and I was successful at it. And again, it was really fun and it was cool, and I did great. But I think the biggest lesson I learned was just like you can't do the same thing over and over and over. So I was streaming Melee only, and I think that was my problem. Now that I'm back, I'm still doing mostly Melee, but I'm squeezing in different games in between. So I did some Dark Souls. I did like some space game. It's really cool. I forgot what it was. But I'm just playing like other random games and just trying to have fun with it more so than thinking of it as like I need to stream today. This is what I'm gonna do. Not be so monotonous with it.
And like that's the thing I'm always really curious about with Melee streams is like there's only really so much you can do because of the lack of like online matchmaking, and because you know, net play is so kind of imperfect. You're really either grinding out tech skill, which isn't exactly the most stream friendly thing in the world, or you're relying on like people physically being in the room. So how do you kind of like keep it fresh, or like how do you kind of reconcile that, I guess?
I'll generally try to do different things different days, just switching it up. So I'll do like tech skill one day. Maybe the next day I'll have a guest over. Living in SoCal, I'm lucky to have good competition, whether like it's the players around me or people visiting. Like this week sucked because I was supposed to have none. Like none was here in town, so like I played with none on like Monday and Tuesday, I think. Dark Atmo was still in town from the tournament this weekend in Evo, so that would have been a 6 stream, but that didn't happen.
The computer stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so that sucks. But like, yeah, I'll have people like come by. I'll have somebody who wants to train or get better, and end up playing them for a while. Another day I might do like match analysis or like note taking, watch my own matches, seeing my habits. Like there's still a lot of work I need to do to get to the next level. So that's where streaming kind of makes it easy for me. I'm going to do this work anyway. I'm going to be analyzing this anyway. I'm going to be watching this match. So I might as well just stream it and talk about my thoughts.
I mean, like that. I know that completely, mostly just because it's probably the least interesting thing in the world. But usually, if I have to write something that's very, yeah. Sometimes when I have to write, I have to kind of keep it under wraps. I can't exactly make it public. But usually for my own blog posts, it makes it so much easier when I have the, I don't want to say pressure, but it's like if 2 or 3 people are watching me bang out a blog post, it's like I'm more likely to do it all in one shot than, you know, put it down and then pick it back up. And like, you know, I can actually devote like a long stretch of time to it instead of getting distracted along the way.
Right. No, I think that's always the way to do it.
So kind of like something that I always find really interesting, and I think I brought it up with Zoo, is just the how there's these little tiny networks forming, I guess, between different Smash players, where you have the like Alex 19s and Mangoes and Luckies, and then you and I think Hugs very kind of like have this rapport on Twitter, and that kind of, you know, feeds into both of your streams kind of back and forth, you know. And like, so like how important, I guess, are kind of bouncing off other people. It's like, sure, they're your competition, but if you're in their chats or you're, you know, going over to their streams, that kind of stuff, it's like it does kind of follow back to your to your product, I guess. Like something that I've always found very interesting is the Games Done Quick marathons, where having a good stream on there usually boosts people's, you know, followings on their own chats, or sorry, on their own channels. So I mean, you've kind of got to play the game but also regard them as competition a little bit.
Right, definitely. Like living in SoCal though, or at least I don't know. I was thinking about it recently about how difficult it is for newer streamers who don't really know anybody or who aren't necessarily good at Smash. Like, how do they get started? And I was thinking about that a lot, and like it's so tough. Because like I look at Hugo and like, yeah, Hugo's my competition, or Alex is my competition in a sense. But you know, at the end of the day, we're all friends, right? We're all going to help each other out. So
I mean, like if none of you guys can make money, let's put it that way, it kind of hurts the whole thing.
Right. But like I used to actually get like, this is when I was a lot newbier, I think, in terms of mentality, as myself as a person. Like I used to get jealous or annoyed that X streamer would have more views than me or more subs than me. And at some point, I kind of realized like that doesn't really matter because somebody else's success is still my success, right? If Mango has 3,000 subs, and for whatever reason Mango keeps streaming, working hard, and gets 10,000 subs, that's 10,000 people, more people interested in the game than would have been otherwise. So even if they're not subbing to me, like at some point, it's still going to leak through, and they might check out my stream. And if I'm producing good content, they're going to stay.
That's always a good way of thinking about it, because like how I got into League of Legends was like watching one stream, which led me to following his team, which led me to like watching more esports, and then hey, here I am. But it's very interesting to see how that chain starts, where just like one little thing can be the impetus for someone to be like, oh, I actually like how that guy carries himself. I'm gonna check it out. How do you kind of like balance? I guess you kind of answered this already, but how do you kind of balance like that time you need to spend in order to remain a top player and content not necessarily on Twitch, but YouTube as well? It's like that is time you're spent editing, uploading, that kind of stuff. How do you kind of like balance the priorities there?
It's really funny that you say this because this is all things like that I've been thinking about, and it's cool to find somebody I can relate to with it. It's really, really tough. Like I was talking about this on stream the other day about how bad YouTube is in terms of like actual money.
It's pretty bad.
It's terrible. As a small or an up and coming channel or a small channel, it's terrible. You'll spend 6 hours. Like I'm not the best at editing, so I'm still learning. I still take a lot of time with it. I might spend 6 hours to make a video, get pretty decent views. Let's say 20,000 views, which I think is pretty decent. And I'll get paid like $2. I'm like, okay, I'd just rather stream. So I've kind of like steered away from YouTube a little bit. I want to get back into it just to kind of increase my numbers because that helps, when I go to sponsors, if I'm looking to get sponsored. My contract's running up with my current sponsor, so I don't know what's going to happen with that. So it would be wise of me to make more content, start building up my numbers more so I could, show a portfolio or a deck to a potential sponsor. So that's tough. Like it's really hard for me to take time to just make a YouTube video. There's not a lot of days where I have 6 hours to sit down and do nothing and decide I want to do this. But I think that's where streaming comes in handy more so, because a lot of the things I'm practicing are just like what I'm going to practice anyway, or what I'm streaming is, like I said, what I'm going to practice anyway. I am going to watch Evo Hungry Box versus Armada Grand Finals, and I'm going to stream it because I'm going to watch it anyway. So that makes it really, really easy for me. But there are trade-offs, I think, and especially with streaming, there are different types of streams you can do. Obviously, your personality is what's going to make your stream great and unique. What's the point of watching somebody that has the same cookie-cutter personality as everybody else, right?
Yeah.
But it's all trade-offs. So, like, I'm not trying to shoot shots at Hugo. Hugo's, like, my best friend, I think, in the community. But his stream, for example, has grown dramatically in the past few months. Like, he went from he had, like, 80 subs, I think, in February or January, whenever he quit his job. He had, like, 80 subs, and now he's, like, at 400. So he's grown a lot in the past few months.
I remember helping him out when he first started. Like that was just seeing him kind of go to this larger echelon. It's like sometimes even if you do it unconsciously, you kind of put different people within the same game or same community on a tier list. Where it's like, okay, there's just like a perception of how successful their product is. And even just seeing Hugo I don't want to say but Hugo sits in front of his thing, he drinks a lot of beer, he shoots straight and commentates on a bunch of stuff. But I think a lot of people like that personality, and even if they're kind of just I think Hugo's done a very good job of monetizing negative memes, or at least joking memes of himself. And I mean, like, if you're gonna suffer them anyway, you might as well try to make some money off sub emotes for it.
Who knows? Maybe he's missing all those charge shots on purpose.
Hey man, if I had the choice, sometimes I would throw in one just to be like, okay, well, this is non-essential. I'm not going to use it anyway. Just kind of like, get all the subs, spamming it in the chat, and then maybe someone will subscribe just to join them. Clearly just rig the bracket or rig your complete match for Twitch emotes. It's interesting that you were saying like what you're bringing up now, mostly just because you were saying you had a sales background and something talking to a couple players, at least helping them with resumes or helping them with the concept of sponsorship decks. It's like that kind of real world experience really does help, because you at least know that if you're going to go to someone and ask them for money, it helps to have numbers to show why that money is going to be valuable, like going to be well spent on you anyway. So does that kind of like, even though you didn't really like that job, do you kind of like see yourself using skills that you picked up there?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think my last job, one of the most important tools I learned was what was it? PowerPoint. I don't even use it that much anymore.
PowerPoint's,
But
PowerPoint everyone gives it shit. Everyone gives
so
it
good.
shit, but it's so good.
No, it's so good. PowerPoint and Excel have really, really made a difference. Like when most recently I was looking for a sponsor, I ended up getting in contact with some people, and I had something I could show them. I could just link them to my PowerPoint presentation, be like, look, this is what I do. I have these many numbers on Twitch, these many concurrent viewers on average, unique viewers, etc. on Twitch and YouTube. I commentate, I compete. These are my results. Have pictures of the events, have links, extra content I do, podcasts, videos, interviews, etc. So I can like deliver that to them, and like the fact that I cared that much to put all this together shows a lot more than somebody who might even have better results than me as a player, or somebody that has maybe a bigger stream than me. I'm still putting in the work to show them in a professional way. That shows dedication. So like those type of trades and or that type of skill rather really, really I think make the difference and help a lot with Smash. I think it's really underutilized though. I think a lot of players and a lot of TOs don't capitalize enough on sales aspects at tournaments.
I mean, it's one of those things that is kind of a tragic result of the age demographic of the people that are putting these things together, because like you're taking time that, I mean, if you aren't working like a mundane job in kind of sales or any of those kind of pitch oriented industries, you're not going to know like what is actually valuable. Like you're not going to know what the potential is. Like I remember working with Pew Pew's resume and mentioning that he was part of a regular partnership with PewFat or with SFAT was something he didn't consider, because like I was just like, hey, you're going to be on stream more because you're going to be in an actual doubles partnership, and that implies that, you know, there's a team there and there's a brand, and it's not just you picking up with randoms, you know, every tournament, whatever. There's something to kind of like work forward there, and it was one of those things where he didn't necessarily think of it that way, or he hadn't considered it that way, and that just like I mean, you know, Zach obviously has his own accolades, and that's why he got picked up by CLG, but it helps extremely for CLG that both of them are a team, both of them are a package deal, so to speak, and it kind of works out. So not having that business background really kind of hurts some players sometimes, because they don't realize either their worth, or they don't realize how to like demonstrate their worth to other people. Yeah,
no, it was really smart of them to pick them up as a team too, for them to brand themselves that way. I think that's really, really good.
So just, I guess, in that vein, I guess it's like I think with Smash especially, there's this kind of like, I want to say a group of maybe like 20 people, 20 top players that are so visible within the community that like, I don't automatically just want to be like, oh, okay, if you've been invited to a summit, like this, you're part of that group. But there is this kind of like, I don't know, if I just like wrote down a bunch of names in terms of the people that I expect to either see at a tournament or see on camera, you know, doing player commentary at a tournament, or just like putting themselves out there in a way that they are clearly hustling to try to make themselves better, or more lucrative, let's put it that way. You'd be one of them. It's just like, how do you kind of reconcile being, I don't want to say like not at the top, or like not on the like Mango Armada like top 6 level, but like I don't want to say you're like in the middle of that or something like that, but it's just like, how do you kind of like reconcile your place within the Smash hierarchy anyway, and how you want to like convince people to like invest in you personally?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. That's fine. I take no offense at all.
It's one of those things where you sometimes have to word it a little bit sensitively, because you don't want to just be like, so you're not as good as the best guys in the game. How do you kind of deal with that? And it's like,
so I justify it to myself as in like, and I hate to use the word justify because it has like that negative connotation, but really it is like that those players have a lot more time invested than me. Yeah. I have been back in Melee for like, I think 3-ish years. And I've already done a lot. Like my first year being on the MLM Top 100, debuted at 40. First year that I was back, I had a lot of good regional wins, and I started traveling more, and then I got ranked, and then now I'm where I'm at. So I think that speaks a lot in terms of myself and my work ethic. More so to myself. I don't really care a lot about what other people think in terms of like how good I am. Like I don't seek that kind of validation. I think proving myself and my own worth to myself is more important. So I have to look at it though, like, okay, I am at this point, like right now, for example, in SoCal, I'm ranked number 7th. And in most of the regions, if you're ranked number 7th, you're kind of okay. In my region, it actually is really, really tough. So, like, I look at everybody else above me, and I think I don't know if this is in order. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm number 7. Number 6 is Hugs. Number 5 is MacD. Number 4 is S2J. 3 Lucky. 2 West Bowls. 1 Mango. So I look at that. I'm like, dude, all these guys above me have at least like 4 years of experience on me. Like, they played through the times I was in Brawl, etc. So they have a lot of time on me. So that kind of like gives me hope. Like, okay, well, I got this far in 2 years. Maybe in another year I can catch up to that, or maybe in another 6 months I can catch up to that. And I'll make a lot of small goals to try to keep myself motivated. But I know with more time I can do it. Like, the most important thing I think in improving myself as a player specifically would be just having a better work ethic and optimizing how I'm practicing and what I'm practicing and what I'm learning. Because I think if we're all traveling, obviously, like if Mango has 5 years on me and I have to catch up to that, and I'm taking it at the pace he is, and it's just going to be stagnant. He's going to keep improving at the same rate. I'm going to keep improving at the same rate. So either have to put in more time than him, or I have to practice more efficiently than him and learn more efficiently. So that's kind of what I think about when I'm practicing and when I'm preparing for a tournament, or when I'm just trying to improve, which is all the time. How can I optimize what I'm doing? How can I learn faster? How can I learn this more efficiently? So I'll break down a lot of scenarios. I'll break down gameplay. I'll break down matches. Try to really understand what's going on.
The interesting thing that you bring up is like definitely, even though that you're lower on that power ranking than some of those players, in terms of just like building your own product, and I don't want to just put a general label of like, oh, you're more successful than them in terms of just like that secondary kind of market of Twitch, YouTube, branding yourself, that kind of stuff. But that's kind of what it is, that's kind of what it is. If I look at someone, like I don't mean to name names, but if I look at a player or two on that list, you think, okay, well, their stream isn't as big as his, their, following isn't as big as his, he's probably generating a little bit more residual income from those kind of things that kind of but enable him to kind of like be a little bit more comfortable in terms of, it's not like you're working for nothing and trying to like do it in your spare time, like when you're not at a,
right,
full-time job or something like that. So does that something that makes it a little bit easier for you? Not so much in a comparison being like, okay, like I might not be placing as high as him, but I'm making more money, but at least for yourself when you're looking at it and being like, okay, at least I'm getting somewhere. At least I'm kind of like got a foothold there instead of having to claw up from nothing.
Honestly, I don't think about that kind of stuff like too often. I think I have in the past, and I definitely have caught myself thinking about that. Maybe like last year. I think in the last year I've just changed so much, like mentality-wise. Like I used to spend a lot of time. I'm not saying your question's stupid, by the way. I think it's
no,
it's
don't worry, man.
all right. I'm just saying, like I used to think about that kind of stuff, but then like I just get caught up in thinking about it, and like I would get like I'm not salty, but I would just get annoyed at certain situations weren't easier for me. So I haven't really thought about that kind of stuff in a while, but I definitely have in the past. And like, I don't know, I think growing your brand is just as important as growing yourself as a player. Like, I've heard multiple stories. I'm not gonna name any names, but like multiple stories of people getting sponsored by big teams because they have a big brand, and not necessarily like the best players, not getting top 8 at Evo, not getting top 16, but they're getting sponsored because of their brand and what they're doing with YouTube or their stream or their Twitter. So it's really, really important. I wish more Smashers spent time kind of understanding it and engaging more, I guess.
I mean,
I don't think we do that enough.
Yeah, I was about to say, like you said, if they win, you all kind of win, I guess. And like that's one of the weird things, just like thinking about Smash in comparison to a lot of other games, is like you have a harder, I don't want to say a harder sell, but it's like Nintendo isn't working with the Melee community, unless it's kind of like in passing. Like we saw some Nintendo of America tweets over Evo, which was pretty cool. But it's not like you guys have, this is something I brought up with Zoo, was it's not like you guys have a Riot Games, or it's not like you guys have a Valve software that is like producing the like first party, oh, here's like a Dota compendium for, the international that is going to make a shitload of money and make the prize pool inflated, or, this isn't, you guys don't exactly have a Riot Games that has X amount of million followers across all platforms. So, on the off chance that LoL Esports' Twitter is going to tweet out, oh, check out this person's stream, you don't have the big gap like that. It's kind of just like you guys are very, on your own island, and that almost makes it a little bit more difficult for sponsors as well, because there isn't that kind of like inbuilt, we're going after the I'm a Cutie Pie or the Dyrus fans who are also casual League of Legends players. It's like, okay, well, we're going to go after the Melee fans who may not even play Melee, who may only watch tournaments, and it's like there is that sort of limited facets there. I don't know, like I said, or like you said, it almost doesn't pay to kind of think about all that stuff, but I have to imagine that there is at least a thought in the back of your mind, or at least in the back of many of the major, Melee content creators, that, hey, we're not the same as like LoL or Dota or Counter-Strike. Like, there is limitations to how far Melee can go in that regard.
Yeah, but I still think there's a lot of room for growth, obviously. Which, like, look at like Brain Gear, for example, right? Brain Gear came out of nowhere. One of our friends, Rob, who's working at Red Bull, ended up leaving and working for Brain Gear, and immediately they hit up the Smash community. They go to Hugo, offer him a partnership, and like, when I see that kind of stuff, I still have hope. It's just like, okay, like, people are at least trying to find a way to make this work. Like, I've tried Brain Gear, by the way, and I love Brain Gear. Go use code Hugs86 for 5% off on Brain Gear.
I've tried Brain Gear when I was at the Beyond the Summit office. I tried.
No,
Brain
they're
Gear.
great.
I was actually pleasantly surprised. It's an acquired taste, but I think it does get a little bit. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I didn't hate it. Let's put it that way. I've tried Soylent and all that other stuff as well. So cool. It's I'm definitely not against these kind of like all natural or like drinkable nutrition. Mm-hmm. It's just like I remember when Chillin' Dude first got sponsored by Curse, the whole Energems.
Oh yeah,
thing.
Energems, yeah.
Energems, and if you think about it, it's like there's this weird half and half like irony / positivity of it, where you know that it's a sponsored thing, and you know that they're trying to sell you a product, but like Brain Gear is taken off as its own like inside joke with the Smash community, and the same thing kind of happened with Energems, and then they kind of Energems kind of like turned into G Fuel and all those other kind of like nutrition sponsors, I guess, or Quest or whatever. But it's obvious that they're trying to sell you something. It's obvious that they're trying to sell you this product, but there's almost like this wink wink nudge nudge thing where it's like, oh, okay, we're trying to sell it to you, but it's not completely crap. So
exactly,
it's just this weird thing where I don't want to say you don't know who's genuine about it. Like, obviously there are, I think at least you and Hugo, or at least people who have tried, Brain Gear, can attest that it is like a real thing. But at the same time, it's just like it has this level of irony to it that just makes it really funny.
Right. Well, it's smart marketing too. Like, Hugo was just a great choice. Hugo is the person in the community that people think of like one of the most in terms of having the best like mind games or being one of the smartest analytical players. So giving a product that's going to deliver high focus, that's the person to go to. You give to like Armada or Hugs, like that's great. So companies like that I will always support. If the product works, like if the product doesn't work, I'll be honest about it. I'm always honest about that kind of stuff. I love Brain Gear. Like I if I had enough, if it wasn't so expensive for me, if I had more money, I would drink it every day. Like, I love Brain Gear. But that brings into question, like, going back to like how Smashers aren't the best at sales or branding themselves or marketing themselves. I look at like, okay, well, why doesn't Alex19? He's like the buffest dude in the community. Why doesn't he have some sort of workout supplement sponsoring him?
Quest Nutrition or something like that. Yeah.
Quest, or whatever it might be, whatever
GNC,
workout supplement wants to hit up.
Literally go to a GNC and then pick out all the brands and just send emails over and over and over until something happens.
Yeah. So I look at that. I'm like, okay, why hasn't this happened yet? Or other players have their own specific personality or whatever they might be able to do. Like Chudat, like I could see him having like a Crunchyroll sponsorship or something. Like there's a lot of avenues that people can take, but nobody is pushing towards that, which is really unfortunate. Like I don't think it's too complicated. I was having this conversation recently with somebody about our SoCal series. Like, why don't we're talking about money and how little money players get in the community. And I was complaining that, like, me and West Balls were complaining about, like, how SoCal still does $5 tournaments for our monthlies. And that just really sucks. It's just like, okay,
especially for a monthly. Like, I go to a tavern that's like 5 minutes away. I'm still paying $2 in order to get into the tournament. So like just $3 more for what's supposed to be a monthly tournament in like the most competitive Melee region in the world. That's still kind of like
Right, so like last week we had our SoCal Coliseum 2, and I'm not trying to fire shots at Kira if he ends up hearing this or whatever, He's one of my good friends. He was very ambitious in terms of what he wanted to do, and that's fine. We had a top 8 payout. We had 250 entrants. It's the first tournament at this venue, so like it's a huge success. But first place ended up getting like $375 or something, like less than 400. At that point, it's just like, dude, he had to go through so much competition to do that. To win a tournament, SoCal means so much. But the fact that he's getting less than $400, like, really, really sucks. Or our SSS tournaments, like, to give you an example, in order for me to get 4th at an SSS would generally mean beating a player like Captain Face Roll, or I would have like a Kira in my bracket.
It would be a challenge.
It
would be a challenge.
It'd be a challenge, right? I'd lose the West Balls, beat like a Captain Face Roll, a Hugs, and a MacD, and I'll get like 4th place. And that's going through some of the best competitors in the world to get like $30. So it's just like, I don't know why we're still doing $5 pots. But the conversation goes to like, okay, well, how can we get money outside of collecting more attendance fee, which is finding sponsors? Why haven't we done that? Why does this
sponsor
channel...
the tournament even? Like,
right.
Not even the
No,
individual players.
Oh, right. But I mean, like, stream sponsorships. Like, you can have people, like, you can have local businesses advertise on your stream. You say, okay, per month or on average at these events, we get 15,000 unique viewers. We get 250 entrants, this many spectators. These are our numbers. What can you do for us? And it could come out to something as little as, like, you could undercharge businesses and still make so much extra money for the pot and for the tournament. You could undercharge and charge $100 for a day of stream advertising with this many numbers, 15,000 viewers, etc., and get 5 different companies to do that for $100. It's really underselling. Yeah. But you'll still make an extra $500 to the pot and be able to pay people properly.
And, obviously, paying people properly means that they can reinvest, like, even if they're taking this seriously in terms of just, like, a full-time thing, or even just, like, I don't want to say a semi-full-time thing, but there's a threshold where you can do this as your 9 to 5, or, like, your 9 to whenever you go to bed, but there's also kind of, like, well, I've got to work a part-time job, or I've got to work, a full-time job and then do this in my off hours kind of thing. So there are different kind of tiers in terms of availability. It's just, like, I get what you're saying, and I'm totally on board with it. It's more of just like, I think the major kind of threshold for that is that it's the genuine thing. Like, it's the ability to remain genuine in selling out, and that's like the main problem that I think a lot of communities face, is that none of the I don't want to say none of the players, but a lot of the people are very skeptical of those kind of initiatives because they don't directly benefit themselves, and they also fear that it's going to dilute the product. Where of course you bring in, like, say, okay, so let's hypothetically make up a sponsor for SSS or something like that. Let's take a tavern, because I'm thinking of something independent, something that is going to want that kind of demographic. Obviously, in the States, you guys have a little bit of an older alcohol cap, so you're trying to market to, like, local people, Southern California. Let's even say just an independent, like, Mexican restaurant or something like that, right. Saying, okay, we want to, they're going to buy a spot, they're going to have either, a 10-second ad, 30-second ad or something like that, pay X amount of money, or just even having just one of those, the UFC, how they have the banners, where they used to have the banners anyway. It's like having one of those, that's still space, that's still eyeballs, that kind of stuff. And it even helps with the venue itself, if it's like an eater, it's serves food or that kind of stuff. The thing is that, like, I think a lot of people just get very tentative. They get very, like, they're very hesitant to accept that kind of sponsorship because they think that it's going to lead to other types, which then dilute their experience, which then leaves them feeling negative about something that they've invested a lot of time in. And this was something that around the time of the first summit, I was very adamantly being like, hey, if you think the summit is, like, bad, or you think Beyond the Summit is, like, bad esports, like, you kind of, like, you don't know anything about the company, that kind of stuff. And then I had one person that kind of, like, I don't want to say opened my eyes, but at least gave me a little bit of a perspective where they were saying, okay, if we see, like, an increase in invitationals for top players and that kind of stuff, what about me, where I know I'm not going to win a tournament? I know I'm only going to go 0-2 at a tournament, but I want to make sure that my experience, that I am paying the same entry fee as a top player, or I am, I want to at least make sure that I can know that the tournament organizer is going to have my best interests, even though I'm not going to be the person that's going to be top 64, top 32, like bringing in the stream revenue, I guess. It's like, sure, people are going to be fans of competitive Smash and competitive Smashers, but it's like at their core, there is still going to be a lot of people who just want to go to a Smash tournament to have their own fun. And if they see outside money coming in or sponsorships or something, benefiting a lot of people, but not benefiting that kind of rank and file, they can feel really negative about it. So
I agree with that.
The demographics are just so weird where you don't know how many people that are enjoying high tier Smash are going to be entering tournaments and who would be affected by decisions like that. So it's very inconclusive to say like the majority of them or even the minority of them, because you never really know. But it was just one of those things that kind of clicked in being like, man, if I was a guy that went to a tournament like regularly just for fun and I was paying like the same amount of money I always do, and I was getting a worse experience in order for top players and the TOs to get more money. Like I know that's a very facetious argument, mostly just because like you're saying, top players aren't making hand over fist like, oh yeah, I'm going to make like win this like monthly and get like $5,000 or something, and tournament organizers aren't exactly breaking even either. But it's still this kind of like hesitancy where, oh, okay, if it gets too crazy, we're going to lose this kind of grassroots environment that makes Melee so special.
I mean, coming from my experience, like at least in my region, like, and I'll go ahead and talk more about it to delve more into the topic. We had a monthly series that was great. We got a lot of entrants. Like I'm talking over 200 entrants. We had a doable stream.
Sorry, just one more thing before you go into this is like it's always crazy to be like, oh yeah, 200 entrants for a monthly whatever, where it's just like you see that kind of like explosion where it's like, oh yeah, 200 people in like a venue, no big deal, just whatever. But even just a couple years ago, it was like, oh, 200 entrants, holy crap, this is just like special as fuck, whatever. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But
no, you're fine. I was there for that too. I remember 15-man Melee tournaments. Like it was definitely a struggle. So it's cool seeing. Obviously, we're growing and stuff, right? Like that's great. But the thing that like gets me annoyed is when we have a tournament like 200 entrants, we're charging $10 for venue or $8 for venue, whatever it is, $5 entry, fine. But like, I understand a tournament organizer wanting to make money and needing to make money. You're being compensated for your time. I TO'd, I made money, I put in a lot of work. But what gets me is just like when people are complacent with that. Like, okay, so cool, I made my monthly check as a TO, I'm gonna pay my rent with this. But I'm not really reinvesting back in the community. And that kind of stuff is what gets me. I'm like, okay, so you're not reinvesting. You're not trying to get a better venue knowing how hot it is in the summer. You're not trying to get a bigger venue. You're not trying to advertise more. You're not trying to grow the scene. You're not doing anything super beneficial other than just hosting this event. All you did basically is get this venue and say, hey, we're hosting our tournament. Come. And they'll post like a week before. So when I see that kind of stuff and the TO is still making money, at that point, I just like, I don't get angry, but it's just annoying. It's just like, why aren't we reinvesting? Why aren't we doing more? So to give you an example of how stacked SoCal is, we have our 200-man tournaments for Melee, but last week at the same venue that we use for SSS, 2GG, which is like the Smash 4 version of Team Moxie or SSS, what Crimson Blur deals with, they had a 400 and something man tournament at the same venue we usually host at.
Yeah.
So I look at that, I'm like, okay.
That's like double.
What did they do different, right? Yeah. Well, the TOs are trying a lot more. Not to fire shots at anybody at Blur or anything, but like usually when we have an SSS, it's posted like the Wednesday or Thursday. I don't think this week's has even been posted yet. It might have been posted tonight. But Wednesday or Thursday we'll have a post, hey, SSS is this weekend, come. And then we'll have the page, and we'll have the Smash GG page, and it's a few days before the tournament. So what is 2GG doing differently? They're advertising some money that they make. I don't know how much they make, but like they're reinvesting it back into the community. They get, let's say they make $500. They're taking $300 of that and buying somebody a flight for the next monthly. So they have players that they're constantly flying out.
You have new incentives. It's not the same old stale experience. Or well, right. I don't want to say call it stale, but it's not the same one at least. Right.
And they're trying. What I get from them is that they're trying to grow the scene. And while RTOs like obviously are hosting and they care about the scene, we're not trying to do anything new. We're not trying to bring in new people. It doesn't feel like anyway. We're not trying to have different competition, bring in more hype, trying to do anything to switch it up at all. Like, we could just as easily get a company or whatever it is, and that's what I'm talking about, getting bonuses for the tournament or for the actual event, not even necessarily going to the pockets of the players, but get some advertisers on the stream or at the event and we can use that money to fly out a player, and that's going to bring more hype. It's going to bring more entrants. It's going to bring more viewers, and it's going to grow the scene. So when I see that complacency in running events, it just gets me really, really frustrated that nobody is trying to innovate.
It's kind of a weird thing because it's like it's almost like a moral imperative where you're kind of just saying like, okay, like if you're going to be running this event, you kind of have an obligation to, for the good of the scene, quote unquote, to make things better, you know. And I can see where some people would get a little bit, especially if if you're running that kind of tournament by yourself, or if you're running it, kind of by bootstrapping it, you're almost thinking, okay, well, we just got through this one, like, let's just get a little bit more stable. Let's, but I'd imagine from the outside, it can be a very, like you said, frustrating experience when you're just like, okay, like, why aren't we taking the opportunities that we can in order to get better?
Yeah, and that gets to the topic of, like, why aren't I TOing again? I think because that's the question I asked myself. I'm like, okay, why don't you just step up and do it? But like, I just want to compete. Right now, I literally just want to compete. Like, I just want to play.
I mean, not everyone is obligated. Like, the thing is that you kind of have to understand like what you're asking of people, or like what commitment you're making of people. It's like there's a difference between being able to like suggest logical improvements or suggest logical changes that like anyone can do, or you just being like, okay, this is something that I only have the vision. Like what you're proposing isn't exactly rocket science. It's not something that you exclusively have the wherewithal and foresight to be able to do. It's just like it's a long-term vision thing, and I think that's like one of the things that, especially with younger entrepreneurs, or at least in this kind of situation where you just want to get through the one that you can, hopefully you break even and then maybe do it again. It's like that long-term vision is just like something very difficult sometimes in order to hold on to. But in your situation, at least you kind of have the money coming in from Twitch and YouTube to be able to kind of supplement that and kind of like salve that wound a little bit.
If I didn't, I wouldn't be able to do anything that I do, honestly. Like, living off of tournaments blows my region because we have so much competition. Like, I cannot go to the Friday night weekly 50-man local without having Hugs there, or like West Balls show up, or both, and getting third and making like $30. So like, that really, really sucks. But like, at our monthlies or at our SSSs, it's stupid not to. Like, it's stupid to have to beat 2 top 20 players and like a top 40 player to get 4th place and make 5% back. Like, that sucks.
It's a very interesting thing where, like, you were saying about the Brain Gear thing earlier, where someone left Red Bull, went to Brain Gear, and all of a sudden kind of like was the Smash advocate within the company. It's almost like you kind of need that, like, you need that one guy who like comes to a tournament, goes 0-2, but all of a sudden is like a marketing guy for like a large company, and all of a sudden he's just like, oh yeah, okay, I can kind of like, I want to help out this tournament, I want to see it get a little bit better. But then all of a sudden you've got like some guy who's like their job in order to expand these kind of things in order to try to get that there.
Right.
No, like I can definitely sympathize with that anyway, mostly just because I think that we all kind of have this like internal timer, I guess, where we're thinking like, okay, we've done it for this long, like how long is too long to have spent on this? Or if you're not seeing the kind of progress that would make it more viable for you in the future, at least from a worry perspective, because like I imagine that anyone who streams on Twitch, anyone who does the YouTube thing to a certain degree is worried, like, where is my next paycheck coming from? Am I going to have enough in order to cover rent? Like, if I go travel, is that going to mean like a whole bunch of days that I'm not streaming, which means that people might unsub, which means that I might not have enough money to cover whatever. It's like, that is just such a harrowing experience that it's just really frustrating, I'd imagine.
No, yeah, it super sucks. Like, when I was full-time streaming, I think that's one of the things that demotivated me after I came back from Genesis, was I was at like 150 subs, and I come back from Genesis like 4 days, and I come back and I'm at like 107, and I'm like, it sucks, right? And it's not like it's the most money in the world, but it's just
but
like,
it's still something, man. That's
no,
still,
yeah,
like,
absolutely. But it's just like the time I put in.
I don't want to say it's like free money. Like, that's the thing, is like my first instinct is to call that free money, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to say it's not even a convenience thing either. Like, it puts you in this really weird like feast or famine environment and mindset, and that like accelerates the burnout, because it's like, okay, your desire is to compete at a higher level, but Well, we see the same thing in League of Legends and in Dota right now, where like you see Chinese players, because they don't have a monopoly on their streaming environment. They have multiple companies that are all paying very large salaries or contracts in order to exclusively stream for them. So you have these like legendary Dota players all of a sudden just not give a shit anymore about competing, and then their teams lose, their teams break up, they go into like the cool thing, or well, the thing that they excuse it with is they take the really veteran like famous player and they put him on a youth team where the storyline is, oh yeah, okay, we want him to mentor these young kids, but in reality it's just because he got so much money streaming, or he realizes that streaming is 10 times easier than it is to actually put in the time to compete, that he just doesn't want to anymore. But you know, the company or the team has paid good money in order to keep this person there, so it's just kind of like you got to make him useful somewhere. But like you're saying anyway, it kind of puts you in this weird crossroads of like, where do you want to devote your time and your priorities, and especially if the tournament, you know, like that venue is not improving at a rate that would make it comfortable for you. I can understand the frustration, at least the stress, because it's like, it's not a tangible stress, it's like this intangible stress where you're like, man, I can't blame this guy for not like putting his like 40-hour work week into making this tournament better, but at the same time it'd be so nice because then I wouldn't have to worry as much.
Right. But again, it's all trade-offs, and like going back to making content, same kind of thing. It's trade-offs, like streaming versus just practicing on my own, or like spending that time on my own. I was talking about it a little bit earlier. I didn't get to finish my story, actually.
No problem. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So Hugs, I was giving the Hugs example of where, like, a few months ago he was at 80 subs and now he's at 400. And I was talking to him a little bit about this because he's kind of been in a slump lately in terms of placings. So I was saying, like, how streaming's all trade-offs, like what you want to do. So my stream, like, I wasn't streaming full-time, but, like, when I was streaming, I wasn't necessarily doing as good as I was before. Because I was focusing most of my energy on wanting to improve as a player. I feel like if I get good enough, I will get subs and I will get the viewership I want, and then I'll prove myself as a good content creator, and then keep growing from there. So, like, that's what I've been focusing my time on, and my stream is stagnated, right? It hasn't been doing as hot. So like I'm streaming the normal stuff that I'm gonna do to improve. I'm gonna do tech skill, analyzing, etc. Where on the opposite spectrum, Hugs is focusing 100% on personality. Hugs plays nothing. I think he's playing Outlast right now, which is kind of funny.
Him playing horror games is pretty funny.
But not to fire shots at you at all, but like,
no, of course.
He's not playing Melee at all. He's not analyzing. He's not spending that time. Like, maybe he's doing that outside of his stream, but those 5 or 6 hours that he's streaming his personality and him talking about his hair, who has the best hair in Smash rankings, that time can be spent streaming stuff that's going to make you a better player. So I was talking to him about trade-offs and about all that. So it's funny you bring that up because, like, yeah, my stream sucks right now, but I'm going to be a better player overall. And where he goes in a slump right now because maybe he's not putting as much time or as much effort into becoming a better player. So it is all trade-offs at the end of the day, and you just got to figure out what kind of content you want to make.
I mean, that's the irony, right? Is like what I usually tell people in terms of like, there's like 2 main factors in terms of becoming successful at Smash and on Twitch is it's either you're entertaining or you're good at your game.
Yep.
And there are Dota players that have 0 personality, but because they're that good at their game, or that's the thing. Dota compared to League of Legends is just like 2 different beasts. Where League of Legends, every pro will have a webcam, mic, donation incentives, someone donates like the alerts and stuff like that. But in Dota, it's like you'll always find players who, Evil Geniuses players are really big brand players. They won't have a mic, they won't have a webcam. They'll be playing their own music instead of the game sounds, and you're just sitting there and you're just like, man, how are they actually entertaining anyone, because you don't have like any kind of interaction with them. But then you're just like, oh well, I guess like enough people think that they're so good that fills the void, and that's I think something that makes Mango extra successful is he's both. So like we're saying in the trade-offs, it's like, sure, you can trade off being good at the game for being entertaining, or you can trade off being entertaining for being good at the game and then hoping that they fill, or you can be Mango and be both, or you can be just like a different degree of both. I guess it's just like a weird balance that I think a lot of people are kind of realizing right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Have you seen do you watch DM Brennan at all?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'm gonna send you a video. You can watch it after.
Okay, I my first exposure to him was his video that just came out about his like don't undersell yourself if you're a
The commentator, was that the one?
A commentator, and then I don't have the most positive impression of him, mostly just because he tried to bait me into coming onto his stream in order to use me as a punching bag for my Twitch bits thing. So I know the thing is that it's something that I've learned over my time in esports is that like I can be better at other people, but it's like it doesn't keep you from like learning from them. So send me the video 100%. It's just like it's a weird thing where like you get perceptions of different people, and then but that doesn't mean that you can't learn from them, you know? It's like you almost don't want them. I don't know, like I'd imagine it's where you were before, where for me, I would look at other content creators or journalists or whatever, and I would think, why are they successful when I'm better? Or why are they successful when they're clearly garbage? And the thing is that eats at you. That makes you like, it makes you depressed that you're not at that place that they are. And it also makes you depressed because you're like not spending any time getting to that place that they are. So it's just like you're wasting your time, then you're getting sad about that you're wasting your time, and then you're also getting sad about them being successful because they're not wasting their time. So it's definitely like a really crazy. You have to go through that development, I think, and you have to get over it. But sorry, what was the video about?
No, he just talks a lot about marketing. It's called Gaming and Marketing: Why You're Probably Not Worth What You Think, or something like that.
He's been kind of on that very marketing kick over the last little while.
That's fine. DM has very strong opinions, and like I've known him for a long time, so I know how he is. I don't think he's for everybody, but he makes good points in that video in terms of marketing yourself and your brand. Like he mentioned a Smash 4 player who got like top 32 at Evo, and he was like the only player that wasn't sponsored. And DM has his own way of talking, and like some people consider it rude. I just think it's funny. So like he went to this guy's Twitter and he's like, okay, well, why aren't you sponsored? And like he gave examples of how another player in the same division, or another player who didn't even place top 32, who didn't even make top 64, is sponsored by a big org, and why. Like, and he showed the brand and showed what type of stuff they're posting and what and he kind of explained that a little bit more. And I hope more Melee players kind of realize that, like, players that are better than me should be making way more money than me because they are placing, and if they do the right things, if they try to make content better, or if they try to build their brand on Twitter and start building a following, they can be doing a lot better for themselves. Even myself, though.
What I always tell Melee players or whatever, like I focused on this when I was talking to Melee players, but also for just in general, just like I always just say, just create value. And like the thing is, you're looking at the player that placed lower than that person, but is sponsored by a bigger team. You're probably that person probably has more followers because they provide more value to their audience, and because they produce more value to their audience, the audience is connecting with them more, which means it's better for sponsors, and that makes a lot more sense. You know, it's like if a player, if I was a sponsor and a player was not putting any effort into their like public, you know, I don't want to say giving back to the public, but being visible in the public, it's like it's not a smart marketing decision, at least, unless like they were consistently coming top 3 and my logo was going to be on there. Like having just someone be visible in that community and like just personable and genuine, and like people believe in them and all that kind of stuff. It's like, or people connect with them on an emotional level. Like if you look at Mango subs, like I keep coming back to Mango, but he's kind of the more...
He is the best brand in Smash.
He has the best brand in Smash, but like he makes his followers feel like they're part of a family, and that's like the money. That is the, like, every marketer or every like sponsor's dream is that you want that kind of fanatical following, because they will follow and believe like whatever he tells them to, not in a negative way, in an exploitative way, but in a... you know, in a marketing sense, that's money, that's golden. So you kind of want that. And if I was a sponsor and I saw someone who like wasn't even trying and wasn't making top 8, and it's just like, well, I can put my shirt on them, but people probably won't see them, and then they probably won't see them between tournaments because they're not trying at Twitter. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Like I just looked at the followers out of curiosity, and the dude that plays top 32 has like 1,500 followers, and the other dude has like 20,000. So it's like, what are sponsors looking at? They're not going to sponsor some Joe Schmo who doesn't put in time or doesn't have that following. Unless, you know, you're amazing. Unless you got like top 3, then you know, that would change things up.
Well, you have to be so good that other people do your marketing for you. It's like if you were going to be so good that other people are going to be making these like GIFs that go viral, or, you know, Giphy cats that are on the front page of Reddit, like that does the marketing for you. That in that case, that's a longer term marketing where people are going to associate that player with that brand and whatever. hypothetically Cloud9 or whatever. If Cloud9 sponsored this hypothetical player that was on the front page of Reddit or whatever, it doesn't matter if he's Mango or not, because other people are doing the marketing for him. So the Cloud9 brand is visible, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just like, it kind of goes back to that like good or entertaining thing. It's like, you can't be kind of good. You have to be really good. You know, it's like you have to be almost one of the top, 10 players in the world, or at least at the tournament, in order to kind of justify that. You can't just not have a personality anymore.
Yeah, I 100% agree, dude.
Just kind of wrapping this up. I know I kind of went on a little bit of a
No,
tangent
you're
there,
fine.
but
You're fine.
just kind of going on, wrapping this up, I guess. It's like you were mentioning that you were a rapper, or you produce music. Let's put it that way. Is that kind of like your I don't want to say your therapy, but is that kind of like your, I'm going to take some time away from Smash just to like kind of change gears a little?
Not so much that. I think I think we all have different goals in life. Like, I think Smash is something I want to do, and gaming is something I want to do for a long time. And like, if I had to pick a career, this is what I would do. But I don't think that's the most important thing in the world. Like, I've never been a big advocate for like wanting to push for being rich or like getting a lot of money. Like, I don't really care about that. That's not what I live for. More so what I enjoy in life is like art. So when I look at music and I look at rap, like that's my artistic outlet. And that's what I can kind of do to, I guess, fulfill myself as a person. Yeah, I think if like I could pick a dream job, it'd be rapping, and I'd tour the world and just do that. It doesn't matter if I make money at it. Like, as long as I am making art and touching people, then I'm cool with that.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, like, you get different amounts of fulfillment from those kind of like from success in those different kind of things. It's like, I can imagine there are people who are going to TwitchCon as like a Twitch streamer. That's probably fulfilling enough for those people. It's like, it is a giant marketing opportunity and all that kind of stuff, but at the same time, you're like, just being able to meet my fans, or just being in a position that I have so many fans that they want to meet me at this convention, that's got to be really rewarding for some people.
No, it really, really is. Like, I had that last TwitchCon. Like, I wasn't even expecting anyone to come up to me that I didn't know, like, that I had never met before. Because, Smash community is really tight-knit. But I had, like, one dude, like, oh, my God, you're Mike Haze. Like, I watched your stream, blah, blah, blah. And, like, that made my weekend. I was like, oh, like, it just tore up my heart. And I went last year, like, that made my weekend. And last year at TwitchCon, I actually, like, won a contest. I don't know if you heard about this. I won the purple ticket contest. Yeah, so I won the contest. They got me, like, a free hotel. They got us, like, a sick like, limo type of car, et cetera, VIP everywhere. But this one person coming up to me, recognizing me, made my weekend. So, like, those experiences are always cool. It's always cool to run into people.
It's validation, right? Like, it's validation. You are able to just kind of, like, realize that the work that you're putting in is actually leading somewhere, and, like you said, affecting people, and at least in a positive way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is validating, man. It's good to have that feeling. It's cool, like, going out in public. And I hate it because it's, like, narcissistic to an extent, but it's cool when, like, someone will come up to me and be like, yo, sick match at Evo. I'm like, who the hell are you? And then, or like, yo, good shit, let me buy you a drink. Like, that's the best feeling, dude. Going to Evo and having people, like, wanting to buy me beer and wanting to buy me a drink. I was like, I've made it, dude.
It's simple. Fine. It's simple. It's not even about the money. It's just being able to get free drinks.
It was so cool. But hopefully, that'll keep growing, and I'm gonna keep working on my content, keep working to become the best player I can.
Hey man, that's all it really is about. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Kind of short notice. Where can people find you on the internet?
Sure. Twitter.com/MikeHazeGaming, Twitch.tv/MikeHazeGaming, YouTube.com/MikeHazeGaming.
Hey, we got the consistency
everywhere, dude. I did this in like 2008, and all my friends made fun of me. They're like, "Oh, MikeHazeGaming at Gmail. Like, what are you? You're trying to be like?" And it was the people at Genesis. It was the people from Genesis. My friend Bobak. He's like, "What? You're trying to be like Genesis Gaming?" And I'm like, "Bobak, shut the fuck up. Let me do what I want." And then now, like years later, I'm so glad I did that because I could have a consistent business card and etc.
I mean, just not having to worry about that, like just being able to say, like, okay, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitch, I'm on Twitter at the same handle. It makes it a lot easier. What I usually tell people is, I'm like, hey, imagine having to say that to other people, like via voice. Like, the more complicated it is, the more harder it is for people to like remember. If you're telling someone at a con or at like a tournament or something like that, they got to remember that all the way home. And it's like, the more underscores and stuff there are in it, the harder it is for them to do it. So
no, absolutely. He made fun of me for it, dude. I was on the right track.
Yeah, man, don't worry. Okay, like I said, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great having you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, either watching it live or while, aired on my Twitch channel, on YouTube, or on Stitcher, iTunes, or Google Play. There's a number of places where you can listen to this, obviously. We are probably... I'm not sure if we're going to have an episode next week, mostly just because it's the international season, and that means my job kind of kicks into overdrive. I will definitely not be having an episode August... believe it's the week of August 7th to 13th, mostly just because I'm going to be in Seattle for the International for Dota Buff, and you guys can follow along with all that other fun stuff. If you're interested in supporting the podcast and all the other esports work that I'm doing, you can check out patreon.com/MattDemers. All my other social and all Mike's social is in the show notes, YouTube description, or any of that other stuff. So thanks again for listening. We will be back next week with another episode, and I guess we'll see you then.
Cool. Thanks so much, Matt.
No worries, man.